Low scores across the board in NFL DFS in week number 6, which was odd because we went in talking about how this is going to be a really fun slate. We had some value running backs we could like. We got more as the week went along. So a bit odd to see such low scores across the board, but then you also realize that I had guys on almost 2/5 of my rosters who had a goose egg, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You realize that some other guys wound up flopping, and you kind of understand how we got there. And I still think there are some pretty actionable takeaways for this week, but overall mixed bag from week 6. We'll break it down, what it means and what we can learn going forward for NFL DFS. This is the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, week 6 is mostly in the books outside of a thrilling Monday night barn burner between the Chargers and the Broncos. How you doing today?
Is that sarcasm?
Yes. I accidentally called them the Charcos. Well, I called them the Broncos accidentally and then decided to call the Chargers the Charcos. And I've decided that is now in my head canon what they'll be called to make Monday night more fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think this primetime weekend is still better than what we're going to get next weekend. So I don't want to downplay it too much, but next weekend we get.
Did you forget that we had Bears Commanders on Thursday? Did you erase that from your brain? Also, we had Cowboys Eagles last night. This isn't that bad of a slate for primetime stuff.
I don't think you understood what I said. I said this week's primetime
I wasn't
slate.
downplaying. I was downplaying Monday night specifically.
Yeah, but like next week we got some clunkers in primetime, so I don't want to hate on the Chargers and Broncos too much because it's still going to be better than like Patriots Bears next week. So it is what it is. But
you're not excited to watch Bailey Zappi sling it after he dethrones Mac Jones? I actually saw so we joked about this like when it happened basically, and now like I saw a redacted article about it this morning, and I was like, okay, guys, like. I like Bailey Zappi. I think he's fun. Let's not go. Don't make my Slack only takes public and treat them as being legitimate, please.
Well, I mean, he's what 2-0. He's got I think he was like the only rookie to start his career 2-0 with like 100+ passer rating in both games or something like that. And it's in the Super Bowl era. I don't know. Some of those fun stats that are like, how did we even land on this like combination of information? But look, I mean, yeah, so we should probably talk more about week 6 and less about like
why. Okay, I suppose we can. We'll dive in. We'll break down headliners from this week, break down some role changes that were noteworthy to us, and take a look ahead to week 7 on the main slate on FanDuel. If the primetime games stink, the main slate should be better. We don't have the Bills and a couple of teams that are on bye
Eagles,
this week.
The Vikings, the Rams.
I don't mind not having the Vikings. I'm ecstatic not to have the Rams. So like, actually, no, it's fun to fade them. So I don't know. Whatever. We'll talk about week 7 and take a look forward later. Go ahead.
I just wanted to be the first to say, I'm derailing the show now, but I want to be the first to say that I can't believe it's almost week 7.
Yes, the first.
I'm going to make that a running bit every Monday morning.
You're not. I heard someone say quarter or 3/3 of the way or 1/3 of the way through the season this morning.
Yeah, but that's not what I said. Almost week 7. So
okay, well, whatever. I'm going to mute you. We're just going to mute
Brandon
for the rest of the show. We'll dive into the headliner and more in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Why would you not want to be after this blazing start here? Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. And it's important to mention this because tomorrow, the Daily ISO is back with Tom Vecchio. I had Tom on covering the spread today. We talked about some NBA, talked about some props for tomorrow night. Get that over on the Covering the Spread feed, but Daily ISO will be up here every weekday on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, along with PGA, along with NASCAR, UFC, et cetera, all right here in the same place, and a Week 7 preview on Thursday. So search for Covering, or the numberFire, the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, and while you're there, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Thursday nights officially belong to the NFL again, and FanDuel and Amazon Prime Video. Dang it, again, I forgot that it goes on to the second line. Okay. FanDuel and Amazon Prime Video have teamed up to bring you more ways to win this NFL season. I'm sorry, Amazon. Introducing the Prime Video Pick'em, a free-to-play pick'em contest centered around one of the most exciting events of the week, Thursday Night Football. Here's how it works. You'll be given 10 questions to answer about Thursday night's games. Fans who answer the most questions correctly will win a share of $15,000 in cash prizes. It's that easy. Be sure to tune in to Amazon Prime Video's Thursday Night Football Week 7 matchup between the Cardinals and the Saints. That's the most exciting primetime game this week, so I'll take that for sure. No purchase necessary. Age and location restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See full terms at FanDuel.com. Let's dig into week number 6 and recap what we saw here. The headliner for this week is Kenneth Walker III's role on Sunday, his first game in place of Rashad Penny. Walker finished with a 71% snap rate. He had 21 carries and 3 targets for 110 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. He did lose 2-minute work to DJ Dallas, which is very noteworthy because that is a valuable role to have. But Dallas, no targets. Walker ran 13 routes compared to Dallas's 10. So it's kind of exactly the role we thought he would have, maybe with a bit more juice, potentially, like in terms of like the usage. To me, it kind of feels like take Rashad Penny's role that he had before he got hurt and then jack it up like 5 to 10%. And that 5 to 10% matters a decent amount. So I thought the role was pretty good for Kenneth Walker in his first game filling in for Rashad Penny. What is it for you with Penny for Walker based on what you saw in week 6?
Yeah, really good usage. I was a little bit worried in the first half whenever he wasn't out on the 2-minute drill, which I expected to be the case.
Correct.
But what my fear was is that, and it was probably irrational just because it's the kind of thing that you're tuned into and you can kind of adjust for, but that's going to ruin or at least downplay your overall snap rate, and then it's going to look worse and it's going to have me second guessing things. But, he finished with a 52% first half snap rate. Obviously played a heavy majority in the second half. So you like to see that. The fact, I think the best news here is that he had more routes than DJ Dallas, despite not playing on the 2-minute drill. Walker also very similar to Rashad Penny, just in the sense of like a low success rate, but a high per carry number in terms of like EPA and like rushing yards over expectation. So it's going to be a little bit boom or bust in that regard on like a per carry basis, but the role itself, fantastic. And, I mentioned like the Rashad Penny thing. We would have loved Rashad Penny at 65. I think this is Rashad Penny plus, as you pointed out. So it's really nice. It's a really nice role for Walker. And I think he almost like braced the worst case scenario of maybe not playing a lot of like the passing down work, but he got there. So I think it's an overall plus.
I do too. So next week they get the Chargers. That is one of the better games on the main slate. It's a pretty high total. I think that spread might be a smidge too high, despite liking the Chargers. It's 7 points right now. Name that salary, Kenneth Walker III next week against the Chargers.
Oh, the Chargers. That's a juicy one for running backs.
It is.
Their rushing yards over expectation per attempt, 1.90. That's like absurd. So
it's not great.
Walker in that role. Do we have a total on that one?
47.
I don't know if we did because the Chargers play.
Sorry, 52. Okay, wow, I was way off.
Probably like a 78 is the number that's coming to mind for me.
I was thinking 75 because like he could get scripted out and he is 73. So that's totally fine. I'll take that. I think that's absolutely okay.
Is that a write down?
Borderline
write down.
Yeah. I would say we're back in on him at that number. It's a good matchup. I think Seattle's competitive in that game. Did Chino play for the Chargers? I don't think he did, but
the most pressing Monday morning.
He did play. He played a year for the Chargers. Oh my gosh, it's a revenge game. Gino revenge game. Write that down. Who cares about Kenneth Walker III?
It's I like Gino that. Write that game. Down. Name me a salary then for Gino in a revenge spot.
16,000.
Okay.
That's all I got. I don't think we're talking about the offense at all in this game, the passing offense here. But, down usage here. Or were we talking about them?
No, I was like, yeah, I think that's correct that we're not.
Yeah, I think down usage for Lockett and Metcalf, I don't find that to be super, super concerning personally, given that way that game went. I think it's just kind of a bad game. What about you?
Yeah, they entered with 28 and 26%, target share. It's not going to just evaporate. I'm sure it was a script related thing.
Yeah.
Or not script, but like scheme.
Yeah, situational for sure. Okay, let's dig into the injuries from week number 6. Sticking in that same game, Marquise Brown left with a foot injury. Adam Schefter said last night that the x-rays were negative, but that Brown was in a walking boot after the game, and they have a Thursday game. So quick turnaround for Marquise Brown. Rondale Moore and Zach Ertz tied for the team lead with 10 targets, but now DeAndre Hopkins comes back, and this offense is a mess. Cliff said today, like, oh, it's a tight turnaround for DeAndre. Got to get him worked back. I'm like, buddy, just run like a slant. Like that's what this offense is. You're not getting anything downfield. It's not that hard. So let's assume that Brown misses and Hopkins is back. How do you view this team in that situation?
I'm very, very thankful that they play Thursday.
We talked about this last week, how there are situations where you're praying a team is on an island game. This is one.
Yeah.
Also because I can't lose money on them on the main slate. So that's good.
Yeah. I mean, we can take some, swipes on the single game slate. And if you're really feeling it, do the Thursday through Monday, something like that. But
it's dead to me now. I had a terrible, that contest is dead to me now.
I'm thankful for a situation where I can wait and see how much Hopkins plays. I'm assuming it's basically full go. It's not he was off for injury. It was for something other than injury. So he's probably ready to go and play as much as he can handle. The main fear for this team once they are back on the main slate is we might have, I think Rondale Moore will not be very much a factor, but he's going to chip away a little bit. And then we're going to have 4 names, like 4 pass catchers that could do something. It's going to draw us back in on Kyler Murray. And I've joked about this, but it's also like a serious thing. The Cardinals they have to be the team that I've had the biggest loss from collectively, because I'm always drawn in by the potential, but the underperformance is really heavy. And I don't want to just write it off as like, it's only a matter of time before things click. Like, things don't look great.
Yeah. Bad vibes. And the vibes calculator is not clicking for them for sure. I did win money on them this week by betting against them with the Seahawks. So that was good. We'll take that for sure. Randall Cobb. We'll talk about Eno Benjamin later on too. Randall Cobb was carted off with an ankle injury and it didn't look good. Sounds like it's a high ankle sprain, which would be a multi-week absence, but he was pretty emotional. So I wouldn't be shocked if it winds up being more than that. It may have helped ignite a big game for big shot Robert Tonyan. He led the team with 12 targets on a 64% snap rate. It was just the second game this year above a 50% snap rate. 2 of those targets for Tonyan were deep. Alan Lazard and Romeo Doubs both had good roles too. Both had 9 targets. Lazard had 5 deep targets and 2 for Doubs. Don't smile. I know I was wrong about Lazard being a low ADOT guy.
16.8 yard ADOT.
I know I was wrong. It's fine. So it stinks for Cobb to have this injury, given that he actually played pretty well last week. How would you view the passing game shift if Cobb misses time? And obviously they're on they're not on a bye next week. I thought they were on a bye. Wow. Okay. Don't tell me. They play they might as well be on a bye. They play Washington next week against Taylor Heineke, maybe.
The Green Bay at Washington, like mid-October on Fox at 1 p.m. game is like peak NFL to me.
It's a tradition like no other.
It's like when the dust settles from the excitement of like the start of the season, it's like, okay, we get Packers, Commanders. It's going to be like 17-14. But honestly, Aaron Rodgers has not been playing well. He's got a league average sack rate taken. If you adjust his numbers for opponents faced, it's not good. It's not just drops either. Like he might want to, I'm sure he'd like to think it's drops, but it's not that bad in terms of the drop numbers. Like, honestly, between the pass catchers, I guess if the salaries are all low for everyone, there's enough because it's somewhat concentrated. But like, if you just open up the who got a touch or like played a snap or anything for this team, it's a long list of skill players, and it's not very fun in that regard. So I guess I'd be highest on Tonyan just because he fills tight end.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you thinking here?
So you mentioned the low salaries. I think that's one component, but also if we take out some of the targets, that makes it better in that regard. And it's important to remember too that like this offense has the potential to be good despite the fact that it has not been good so far this year. I think that any offense that has Aaron Rodgers has that potential. We should consider that. Just because they've been one way does not mean they will continue to be one way going forward. So what I would say is I'm probably highest on Dobbs just because he's shown the most potential, but I think people are also highest on Dobbs. And if he winds up being popular in an offense that is super, super underwhelming, that's not great. Looking at salaries for next week, Lazard is 66. That's really high for an offense like this, right?
Yeah, I would prefer. So you prefer Dobbs to Lazard straight up?
I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't.
Probably I prefer not. Lazard straight up.
No, that's probably right. Yeah.
But at 66, it's going to take the right kind of slate. Although, I mean, this week I'd have loved for some receivers into the 66 range.
Yeah. Tonyan is 55. So his salary did get juiced up, but I don't think that's like totally out of bounds. I think that's like a fair salary. He would not be a cash game play at that salary by any means, but he would be like a consideration for tournaments in the right situations. I think is where I'd view him there.
And what's Dobbs? Did you see?
58.
58.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to play Dobbs at 58 than Lazard, but I like Lazard's role and just a bit more.
I think that's correct. Okay.
It's also the trust level that matters for a few quarterbacks, but with Rodgers in particular.
And they've talked up Tonyan quite a bit this year too. So in like pre-game interviews with like broadcasting crews and stuff. On the other side of that game will be the Commanders. Carson Wentz has a broken ring finger on his throwing hand and may miss like 6 weeks apparently, so that's not great. Sounds like Taylor Heineke would fill in over Sam Howell, which I'm annoyed about because I think Sam Howell's kind of fun. He's going to take a lot of sacks, but he might look chaotic doing it. Heineke was at 0.00 passing net expected points per dropback last year, whereas Wentz this year is at negative 0.04. Heineke has a noodle arm and is boring. So this offense already is not fun for DFS. I think they would somehow get worse for DFS with Heineke, if that's possible. What's your read on this one?
Yeah, I usually sort every team by like, or just to sort the entire week by route rate and see like, okay, who ran every route? Because I think that's telling if you run literally every route for your team. And Terry McLaurin did that. He had 4 targets. Curtis Samuel ran 92% of the team's routes, 5 targets to lead the team, 2 catches. I don't think this is a situation to go to unless it's a full-on bring back. Yeah. I guess you could maybe make the case preemptively without knowing what the whole slate looks like a Dobbs, Samuel, or like McLaurin mini stack, but that doesn't sound appealing when I know I'm going to save salary doing that. So I'm out.
I think that they want to cover up quarterback. Based on the way they played that game Thursday, they are scared of their quarterback situation, and who can blame them? So I think that's where they're at. We'll talk about Brian Robinson in the rule change section later on. Kenny Pickett left in the third quarter due to a concussion for the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky came in and played well, honestly, but I don't care. I wasn't super into this offense with Pickett, but I was more intrigued with it than I was with Trubisky. So going back to Trubisky, we're not going to go like suddenly shift our view in this offense, correct?
I mean, he like really peppered Chase Claypool, who looked kind of like he had a resurgence somehow. He had 5 of the 12 targets from Trubisky. George Pickens is like picking it up in terms of the market shares and route numbers.
Picking it up. I got it.
But again, Deontay Johnson, one of those guys who stands out 100% of the routes, 7 targets, 28 yards. Like that. I can't invest in this offense.
Yeah, I can't either. So
how low does Najee Harris's salary need to be at this point? Because we've played this game a little
300.
bit.
He needs 20 or 220. He needs to have the Kike Hernandez salary when he was with the Dodgers that one time where like there was a bug with the salary. And like Kike was like tweeting about it before the game because everyone was talking about him for DFS. I need a Kike salary fluke to get there.
Oh gosh. All right, I forgot they're on Sunday night, so I don't
Very nice. J.K. Dobbins missed the second half because his knee tightened up, according to John Harbaugh. He said it could have been because of the turf for that game. That paved the way for Kenyon Drake. 57% snap rate for Drake, 10 carries, 2 targets. He had a lot of yardage, and Drake was somewhat involved in the first half too with 4 carries and 2 targets. Dobbins, 7 first half carries. I think this is just a stay away. Continues to be a stay away. It was like I briefly had Dobbins as being a guy I'd consider, but once last week happened, I backed off, and I'm just further off now, not chasing Drake. What about you?
Yeah, this is one of the worst teams to target running backs for, and I'm staying away.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Cameron Brate stretchered off with a head injury against Steelers, had full movement in his extremities, but just really scary because he had a concussion back in week 4 as well. Right when he got hit, you could tell it was not good. Cade Otton ran 17 routes on 42 dropbacks and earned 3 targets. Last week without Brate, Otton played 96% of the snaps. He had 7 targets. It was a low 8 out of 3.3, but pretty good role for a tight end. Assuming Brate does miss time, how would you view Otton in this offense?
Well, Cade Otton's A-Dotton went up to 10.3 this week. 2 downfield targets, which is 10 plus yards for me. I think that there's enough if the salary's like sub 5,000. Like if he's got a 4 in front of his name or in front of his, salary.
I'd have to assume he does.
Like I think that would be appealing, provided that there's not a whole lot of fearful tight ends on the slate because we saw it in week 5. It's not just trying to project, because sometimes with tight ends, it's easy to say like, okay, this tight end's out, so this dude at 4,200 or 4,400 or whatever is like, let's really just plug him in and say the role is going to be the same. That's not the case, but we did see him involved in week 5. So
yeah,
I'm intrigued by that a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. They're facing off 49. Sweet. I think that's fine. We do have Andrews and Kelsey on this slate. Hawkinson is back as well on the slate. That offense could struggle against Dallas' defense, but that's not the point of right now. So like there are some legit tight ends on that slate, but I think he'd be a consideration at 49 for sure, given that role.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Skylar Thompson suffered a thumb injury and did not return. Teddy Bridgewater revenge game came on in relief. He injected some life in the offense, 329 yards on 34 attempts. He peppered Tyreek Hill, 11 targets, 7 to Jalen Waddle. Mike Gesicki had 6. Sounds like, though, Tua Tagovailoa will be back in week 7. He cleared concussion protocol. They've kind of said that he'll be back next week. They play Sunday night, but just in general, Brandon, how high can we be on this Dolphins offense when we know that they will have like a legitimate quarterback in there? Not to say that Thompson was not, but like we know that they'll be okay with Bridgewater or Tagovailoa being somewhat aggressive. And I think to me, that is a relief for targeting Hill and Waddle in the future.
Yeah. So their pass rate over expectation was a minus 10.4 last week and a plus 8.5 this week. I think it's like a confidence thing. I think that's going to lead to the volume. And honestly, I almost played Tyreek Hill. Almost doesn't get us anything, but like
I never considered him with Thompson. Honestly,
I thought that there'd be enough of a path from volume, but now I don't care if it's Bridgewater or Tua. Like Tyreek Hill he has that ceiling. I think that helps Jalen Waddle. I'm not going to touch Mike Gesicki. I'd rather play Cade Otton than Mike Gesicki.
So I didn't know to Gesicki later on, but let's just lump that in here. It was in situations to monitor, I think. Okay, so Durham Smythe was inactive yesterday, and it's sad that a Durham Smythe injury is what allows Mike Gesicki to be somewhat relevant. 64% snap rate. He ran around on 40 of 53 dropbacks and earned 7 targets, and he grittied, which I think is all that actually matters. He tried. Sorry. He attempted to gritty again. I think that like if Smythe is active, we just cross off Gesicki. If Smythe is inactive again, then Gesicki's at least like on the radar, but still not someone I really truly want to use.
That's fine. Thankfully, I don't have to think about it for the main slate, so we'll just figure it out for Sunday night.
Yeah, if Smythe winds up being inactive, that's the benefit of single game slates. You can focus more on inactives. If he's inactive, then you bump up Gesicki, especially for a single game slate. PJ Walker got banged up too, so Jacob Eason came in for the Panthers. Eason was equally awful to Walker. They were both hideous. Christian McCaffrey, though, 158 yards from scrimmage, 28 adjusted opportunities. And the reason he got there was because PJ Walker's longest completion, I believe, was 1 air yard. I think he had one beyond the line of scrimmage, and it was 1 yard downfield. He refused to throw downfield. So we got a bump from McCaffrey here, but ew. Is this offense so disheveled right now that we can't even trust McCaffrey?
Yeah, it's like Christian McCaffrey has been in bad situations before, but has been able to overcome it. This feels like the worst that it's been. It's like, I feel like maybe before with McCaffrey, the offense didn't do him any favors.
Yeah.
Now it feels like it's actively working against him in a sense. Yeah. Like he looked good. He had some like Saquon Barkley-esque, yards over expectation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just sort of in spite of his offense, and that's really hard to dig into. But name me a salary for McCaffrey that you would want to play him at.
I'm trying to think of like a comp of like a running back who gets an amazing workload and is a very good player, but is in just like the worst offense that's ever existed. And I can't think of one. So it's hard to like concoct what that would look like. I guess like if you took Najee Harris in last year's Steelers offense and made him more effective, like that could kind of be a comp.
Yeah.
Like 85, 83, I don't know, 85.
He's 87. I probably would have said like 83, a little bit lower than that. They play the Buccaneers.
So like he's getting you a lot of points without touchdowns, which I like. But the problem is the without touchdowns part is like stickier for him than usual because their implied total next week is 15.5.
Yeah. So it's one thing to look at like yardage versus touchdowns. It's like and yardage versus touchdowns is a very, very good way to predict touchdowns itself.
Yeah.
But in this case, like if your implied team total is always 14 to 17, there's only 2 touchdowns to go around if you meet that. And like, I think 87's too rich unless we just are blessed with a lot of value plays next week.
And even if we're blessed with a lot of value plays, like, I mean, we get Saquon next week's slate. I'd rather just go there. We get Kelsey, we get Andrews. Like,
yeah,
he would not be the guy I would turn to as a stud if I have value to get there. So that's where I'm at with that one. Let's talk about some role changes from this past week. We talked about PJ. We talked about the Seahawks earlier on. Benjamin, first game in place of James Conner. What?
I'm realizing you meant Kenneth Walker, but said Pete. Like that's like a thing that I would do.
Yeah. Also, I just want to make a motion we call him Kenneth and not Ken, because Ken Walker sounds like he's running for Congress and he's like filming his like congressional ads like on a tractor in a farm field. That's Ken Walker.
But also like he went by Kenneth and he's like his family's pretty well off, but now he's trying to go by Ken to like
because he's a farm boy. Yeah, he's on the tractor running for Congress. Nebraska's 3rd district. Do they have a 3rd district? I don't know. Whatever. Kenny Walker. Baseball player with a 235 ISO. Anyway, Benjamin featured with no James Conner, 87% snap rate, which is pretty good. But 15 carries and 3 targets resulted in 65 yards. So the role is good, but the offense sucks. How do you view Benjamin with a great role and a frustrating offense?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a comp. I kind of thought like Devin Singletary in terms of like the high snap rate, high route rate. He had 74% of the routes, but the offense
so a different route to hollow snaps. Basically.
Yeah, like the kind of thing where like it feels like it should be there. And I mean, if memory serves, James Conner's role has been like okay when he's been healthy, but hasn't been doing anything with it. Last year he had a bunch of touchdowns.
Yeah.
So maybe that was just a fluke when that offense was playing better. But yeah, it's again, they're not on the main slate, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But if they were, I'd probably, if his salary went up from 63, I would be a bit wary because I think he'd just be bucketed in like the Singletary CEH sort of like, I get it, but he's very imperfect as a player with his role.
I think his role is like a 67 kind of situation after you consider the offense.
I mean, wasn't Connor around there?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
he's a little bit better version of Connor because he doesn't lose as much work to a backup, but I think 67 is about appropriate for him. The Vikings weren't on offense very much because they kept going 3 and out. So they ran just 50 plays, but Dalvin Cook, 88% snap rate. That made week 6 the first game of the season. Cook has had an 80% snap rate. Last week, he was at 57%. The workload itself wasn't that great, but again, account for the number of plays that they ran. It is worth noting Alexander Madison was on the injury report coming in. He had a shoulder injury. He did play, but he was banged up. So does that game change your view of Dalvin Cook going forward?
I think a little bit. Eventually they got to like lean on Cook more if they think he's like a true difference maker. Again, they're on bye, so it is what it is. But I guess they are. Jeez, I didn't realize they were 5-1. So maybe they don't have to. But
what? I think their win total was 8.5 at one point. Which is great. So they need to keep it up. They're not like a great team.
Right. I was thinking like, oh, they're the Vikings. They're 500. So
they opened at 8.5, but it was minus 130. I think it closed at 9.5. And I was annoyed because my numbers were like, you should bet the Vikings over. And I was like, you did this to me all last year, you dicks. And still did it, but like, I wasn't happy about it. I think that like, it boosts my view of Cook because it makes a featured back-esque game more likely on like the distribution of outcomes, and that's important. So I would say it bumps him up a bit. It does not alleviate the concerns because, again, Madison is banged up. They have a bye week now to get Madison healthy and Dalvin healthy. So I would say like take my view of him from last week, bump it up 5 to 10%. And again, that matters, but I'm not going to radically change my view yet.
Yeah, I think it was still good to see because the snap rate had gone down. We hadn't seen him really have like a true featured sort of game. We did this week. So, like you said, it's within the range of outcomes now, whereas it didn't really feel like it before.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. With no Damien Harris, Ramondre Stevenson was treated as a like legit feature back. I think he played the first 42 snaps. He was at 100% for a very long time. Wound up at 85% because they were decently up in that game at one point. 19 out of 23 running back carries. He had all 5 running back targets, 53% route rate. It's a great role. Awesome stuff. Damien Harris is limited in practice all week, so he could return week 7. And we're not going to know before lock or before these situations because the Patriots are the worst. But how do you view Stevenson moving forward?
Yeah, arrows definitely up. They're Monday night. That's right. So, let's say they were on the main slate. I think with that role, it's going to be a reality that the Patriots don't have huge implied team totals or over unders, and they're not playing in like the most fantasy friendly games. We kind of had that, this week well enough with Stevenson, but he was 75. I think he'd be around 81 for me.
I was thinking 85 if there were no Harris. Like, I know it's not the best like situation, but it's an amazing role.
So McCaffrey's 87. We said like 83-ish for McCaffrey.
I said 85, I think. 85, 83.
Okay,
yeah.
so like...
I'd rather take a slightly worse role in a more functional offense. Can we trade Bailey Zappi to the Panthers? Is that a thing we can do?
What says like week 7 DFS and fantasy football than like Ramondre Stevenson or Christian McCaffrey like straight up?
Well, Ramondre is awesome,
think about it.
So,
What's that?
Ramondre is awesome, so I'm not going to
No, I know, but that. Usually with the Patriots, we're not we got to be careful with these running backs. Stevenson was, I don't even know what would be the last time that the Patriots featured a running back to that degree.
Dion Lewis,
I guess, yeah, but that was a while ago.
If that counts as being featured, I guess. Because he got hurt pretty fast, but like he had games where he was featured, I guess. So I don't know. It's been a hot second. Yeah, Patricia though making waves. All right. Yes, sorry. We've been tracking Leonard Fournette's snap rate, and it went back up to what it had been in a very neutral script this week, which is upsetting that it was neutral against the Steelers, but whatever. 82% snap rate for Fournette. He had 21 carries and 6 targets. He had 6 out of 15 red zone chances. I think they wanted to cut back in his snap rate, but they're not good enough to do so. I think that they're playing in too many close games. So if they are 10-point favorites against Carolina next week, hypothetically, they are. Maybe they pedal back on Lenny a bit in that situation. But I think in like neutral scripts, do we call him like neutral script Lenny? Is that the new moniker? Or like, because I think in neutral scripts, he's going to be like a legitimate featured back.
Well, what was the spread this week against the Steelers? 8.5 or something?
8.5, yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know if you can bank on
a blow up against the Panthers. You might be able to.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I would say for Fournette, again, it's kind of like similar to Dalvin, where it's like the arrow's going way down, trending down. Am I doing this right? No, I'm doing this. Trending down, but like back up, like the bounce back up.
Yeah.
So for Fournette, the thing though is his salary was super high because he cashed in on a limited snap rate in week 5. I feel like he's going to be oversalaried for me regardless, but I would probably say like 78.
I thought 81. It's in part because I still have some faith in this offense. Like they look bad. I can't sugar. They looked bad. The Tinder Tom narrative is rearing its full head right now. So like that matters, but he's 84. So like not egregious based on mine, but it is egregious based on yours. So probably oversalaried.
I think he's oversalaried. Fournette or McCaffrey in that game at salary.
Fournette by a mile, I think.
Yeah.
I know that like I said higher salary for McCaffrey,
right.
But like realistically, I'd rather play Lenny.
Yeah.
Okay. Same team. Taekwon Thornton. Wait, how did we get to Lenny? I put these out of order. Anyway, whatever. Taekwon Thornton had an interesting role on Sunday, his second week active. This came with Nelson Aguilar out and with Kendrick Bourne leaving, I think after like 2 snaps with a toe injury. But Thornton had 3 rush attempts, 2 of which were in the red zone. 5 targets overall. He scored twice, so the production was there as well. What are your thoughts on Thornton in an offense that we typically cross off?
72% route rate, 5 targets, 3 carries. Second rounder from Baylor.
Super fast.
Is definitely appealing. Would make sense that maybe it's this bit of a slow developing situation, but they don't really have a whole lot to throw to behind.
They can't slow play guys who are good.
Right. So like, I think it's interesting. And if his salary is super low, he might be, boy, this is one of those, like, sounds good on Monday. It sounds terrible on Sunday at 2:30, but
they play Monday against Chicago. My hope is that in that game, he has good usage, but doesn't pop.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to get a salary bump regardless, but I don't want to get the roster rate bump. So I hope that his role is good. I want the best of all worlds.
He would have to go nuts to be like super chalky in DFS this early.
No, people like use like dust balls all the time. Like people will use anything that moves. They're not discriminate. I think that he is like, and we need like a radar meter, like how on the radar is this guy, or how like high is your antenna and like trying to pick up his usage. I'm going to give him like
this is a new segment.
3.5 out of 5 ETNs. Because it's like Travis Etienne's always on the radar, but never really actually in play. 3.5 out of 5 ETNs.
So is ETN a 5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, no, 3.5 out of 5. The ETN is the meter, like 3.5 kilojoules or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, but like if he's the namesake for it, like
no, because he's always on the radar but never actually in play. Like ETN.
So then is he
Travis Etienne's like a 2 on the ETN. He's like 2 ETNs.
Can we do 1 to 10? I mean,
fine. We'll do out of 10. Taekwon Thornton is at a 6.5. That's not.
And then ETN's the baseline of being a 5.
Okay, sure.
Is that
okay? So I'll put you made it up. Thornton
I can't argue because I don't even understand it.
I'm watching him though. Speaking of Travis Etienne, let's talk about him now. 108 yards in scrimmage. That's pretty good. But still not a full role shift. I don't think. He still played just 46% of the snaps, 10 carries, 2 targets. Michael Hasty had a huge run. They tried to duplicate that, did not work. He played 17% of the snaps. That might have helped keep ETN from a bigger breakout. So I'm at 5 ETNs out of 10 right now. Like monitoring him, but not using him yet. He's not bankable for DFS yet. What about you?
Boy, he had 10 carries, 86 yards, but 28.3 expected rushing yards. So he basically was 60 yards over expectation.
He had a huge one, like a 44-yarder or something.
So I thought maybe it was just all on that one rush. He did have a 50% success rate. It's like that's
like a rushing yard over expectation success rate, or like a success rate?
Like an EPA success rate.
Okay, cool.
I mean, yeah, it's all we can do is monitor it. It's not good enough yet.
Yeah.
To play him in DFS though.
Keeping a close eye on it, and we'll see if he can expand that. I think that, like, again, it confirms what we said last week that Robinson is dust, but like,
yeah,
ETN is 5 ETNs out of 10.
I remember people victory lapping James Robinson on Twitter.
Yeah, I haven't.
I get it. I get like feeling excited, but like
Yep. With Cam Akers inactive and possibly done with the Rams for good, they leaned on Darrell Henderson a bit in week 6. 70% snap rate, 12 out of 20 running back carries, 3 out of 5 running back targets. He also had 5 out of 13 red zone chances. So like the role was fine, but the offense is dog doo. And I don't want a piece of this offense, especially because they can't run. They lost the left tackle, Joe Noteboom. Sounds like he might have torn his Achilles. So an already bad offensive line got worse. So Henderson's role in theory is fine, but I kind of feel like he's in the Eno zone where it's like his offense stinks and I don't want to use it. I think it's a lot of hollow usage. So I don't like Darrell Henderson yet. Where are you on him?
Yeah, about the same. I mean, I did get there. I thought the salary was low enough for what the role could be. The role was a little less than what I thought it could have been. They just like involved a ton of different players with getting like carries. They're almost Saintsy where they'll give it to someone that you didn't even know is still with the team or something like that. Like Brandon Powell getting carries. So
like 5 targets too.
So it's one of those. I mean, Powell had 3 carries. Kupp had 2. Ben Skoranek had 1.
Ronnie Rivers
had 1. Tutu Atwell. So it's like, look, guys, they're talking like the receivers room. It's like, look, guys, we're not going to get you any targets, maybe 1, but like you're all getting a carry. Everyone's getting a carry today. Like just enjoy it. You're going to get your play. We're going to call one up for you.
I just don't want 12 carries and 3 targets in this stupid offense. I don't want that.
Right. And like I specifically listed 12 of 20 running back carries. It's not as good.
Yeah.
Market share wise, if it's all the carries.
Yeah.
So I'm probably out unless it's a great game, but they're on bye.
Good.
Right.
Again, like I guess I'm kind of sad because like people, I don't know. I hate the Rams. Allen Robinson on that same team. This one is actually on the same team. I didn't make that up this time.
I think 6 out of 30 that up, so I'll take the blame.
Oh no, I shifted stuff around. 6 out of 31 targets for A-Rob. Second best target share he's had in the game all season, but I feel like that's the issue, is that it was a 19% target share is the second best game. I don't want to go at him either. I think this whole team is dusty as heck, except for Kupp. Like, I don't know. I don't want any Rams. I don't know if that's like too hard and fast, but like I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, and I made a note too, like Tyler Higbee's route rate like fell off the planet, 56%. I'm assuming that's just more pass blocking, because what was his snap rate? 78%. So a lot of the snaps were pass blocking. So it's really just Kupp and maybe Henderson whenever they're back on the main slate. If the salary stays low, we'll wait and see.
They just have no juice. I need an offensive juice. Like Van Jefferson, once he comes off IR, might be an aid for this team, which is wild. Crazy.
Didn't they like win the Super Bowl or something last year?
No, didn't happen. Aaron Jones's gap over AJ Dillon shrunk back to what it was earlier on this year, which makes last week seem like a blip. Jones 74% snap rate in week 5. Week 6 went back down to 58%. Same role he had weeks 1 through 4. AJ Dillon actually had more carries and more targets than Jones in a neutral to negative script, which is weird. Yeah. So I feel like we just go back to handling this one as usual, correct?
Which is not playing them.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin's role went back to normal in week 6. He had a 90% route rate and a team high 12 targets. Remember, we mentioned last week that he sat a lot of the second half because they decided they wanted to. No other Buccaneer had more than 6 targets. So this offense as a whole is pretty bad right now, but Godwin at least has a path to double-digit targets, which is never write-offable. So where would you be with Godwin moving forward?
Yeah, so Godwin was like the perfect example of, not like talking about the slate Thursday morning and not being able to talk about it like as things evolve. But he went limited on Wednesday in practice, didn't practice Thursday, and then got in a full practice Friday. Tom Brady was wearing a Chris Godwin t-shirt during a press conference. I ended up actually getting to Chris Godwin, whereas, as early as Thursday when he was limited and like not practicing, I wouldn't have been there. So I think that tells me enough where I like Godwin. If the salary is reasonable, I feel like he's one of the more reactive sort of pricing options where if there's a hint, like a whiff of upside for the Buccaneers receivers, they go up towards like 8,000.
Will that ever happen though? Will there ever be a whiff of upside for them?
Well, like Evans he was 77 this week, I think. But Godwin's he's gonna go up to like 75, right?
Probably not, because he didn't score, I don't think. 7,000.
Okay.
Like that game sucks. Again,
Like
they just played a lot of bad games. They get Panthers next week.
But like I don't know. We're talking like if you look at like a season long like league wide view, like running back is like a big issue, and that applies to DFS obviously as well. But like receiver itself has been pretty underwhelming. There haven't been like a ton of like Diggs has been great. Kupp's been doing things. Jefferson had a few down games, but like it's not like, oh man, we got to play Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, like they're tearing it up. So there's not a whole lot of like can't miss spots at receiver. So I'll probably at this point in the week take a good long look at Chris Godwin at 7,000 next week.
I'd rather get punched in the throat than consider playing.
But like apply like Godwin at 7,000 on like most wide receiver slates this year.
Most slates, yes, but against Carolina in a game with a 41-point total. Ugh.
I'm just saying, unless receiver is a lot different than how it's been.
I will look into I don't know. I'll look online, see if I can hire someone to punch me in the throat, because like I'm sure there's a place you can do that.
Mike Evans is still 76.
Yeah, that's too high for this stupid offense. I don't want either.
So it's Kate Otten, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, Kate Otten. Sure, that works. Situations to monitor. What did you note when looking at usages from week 6?
So it's not really like a change, but Alvin Kamara's role is good when he's healthy. 16.5 carries per game in his 4 games, 21% target share, 6.5 per game. If you look at just the snap rate, it's never going to look fantastic. He's around 70%. It seems to be kind of capped, but that's a good workload for him. And I think that I've historically been too low on Kamara in 2022. I'm probably going to change that, even though the Saints are probably the most frustrating team when it comes to predicting touchdowns.
And I don't think that his role being this is entirely a product of like Olave and Thomas and Landry all being out. Like he's had some targets earlier on this year too. So I don't think it's just that. I don't think it's just Dalton, anything like that. I think it's actually like a pretty decent role.
Yeah. We talked about Lenny already. Devin Singletary snap rate evaporated last week, 52%, but 88% in week 6. So he now has snap rates of 74%, 87%, 52%, and 88% over the past 4 games. If we get a week where running back is terrible on the slate, I know Jim's going to be he's shaking his head.
No, it's not about, to me, it's not about when running back is terrible. It's about when they're in a competitive game. Like that's
sure.
Also, like he almost still got single digits despite having like a really good first quarter. He had like 12 points, I think. Like he tried really hard to live up to the name Devin single digits, but couldn't quite get there.
It definitely feels like Tony Pollard's more involved, but he's still at
because Twitter lets you know whenever he's on the field.
Like when you watch like these island games, it's like, oh man, he's like, here comes the backfield takeover. But just keep in mind, 40% snap rate for every week since week 2, including Sunday night. So don't chase it. I know it feels like maybe like a value with upside, but don't go
And don't chase Zeke either because he's not getting work in the passing game anymore.
Yeah.
And so like his role is also like next week they're facing Detroit.
And we're going to get Dak.
And we're going to have interest in that backfield, but I really don't want either. Well, actually, how low would Zeke's salary to be to get you to bite against?
Probably like 6,000. Give me like a great rushing workload and like a red zone workload in a game where there could be points.
69. Not
nice.
My gosh.
Not nice at all.
Go ahead.
Jeff Wilson, his role is like more a range of outcomes. Hit the low in week 6, 51% snap rate, 7 carries, 1 empty target. Last week, 57% snap rate, but 17 carries and 2 targets. So like he can get scripted out. I feel like the optimizers will always like a sort of quote unquote featured back for the 49ers, but
he's not featured.
Right. The optimizers still tend to like him a good bit. Michael Pittman's raw stat line looked good, 16 targets for 134 yards, but the Colts had 58 dropbacks, 27% air yard share. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, we'll talk about them later on too in the philosophical section. It will not be an endorsement of him, just as a precursor. So we're in lockstep there.
Juju Smith-Schuster, 98% of the routes this week, showed some yardage upside. Like
broke a tackle,
tackles. Like, yeah. Does that change how you view Juju?
I think it increases the range of outcomes in a good way.
Like
he's had the targets. He only had 5 targets on Sunday, but like he's had, I don't know. Like I think 64 is more appropriate now than I thought it was before. I'd say it that way.
So they play the 49ers on the road, 47.5 point total.
Really tough defense.
What salary would you need to see to consider Juju for like?
In what format?
More like a head-to-head, because I don't think we're ever going to play him in a like pure GPP.
No, I did this week because I had so many stacks that game.
Okay,
so I had him as like a rotational piece in game stacks. I think in order to make him a focal point of game stacks, I need his salary to be like 61, and he's not going to be that.
No, he's 67, so we saw it increase a bit.
It'll be the same where I use him in game stacks. My view of him improved from an upside perspective, but yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
And then last thing, I got to Devin Duvernay in my main lineup because I thought that there'd be rushing workload and targets, but 5 targets, no rushes.
I had a decent amount too.
It was a different role, but not like substantial enough to go over in more detail.
Yep. Okay. For mine, as expected, Miles Sanders' snap rate took a dip with Boston Scott being back. He played 60% of the snaps, 18 carries and 1 target in a super positive script. I think that if we're missing one of Gainwell or Scott, then Sanders is worth like 73. If both of them are active, then he's closer to like 68 or so is where I'd view Miles Sanders. Talked about Gesicki before. Raheem Mostert, his role went backward a bit. Snap rate was 63%. He had 18 adjusted opportunities. He was on the injury report throughout the week, so could be a 1-week blip, but also it's Mostert, so you kind of expect that to happen from an injury perspective. I would just keep in mind that his role is not as firm as we may think. Wandell Robinson scored in his first game back, but his role is pretty limited, 22% snap rate. He had 4 targets with 1 in the red zone and 8.8 yard ADOT. I think he'll be in play soon. He is 4 out of 10 ETNs right now, but he's not there yet. This one is in situations to monitor just because it might not matter again, but Deion Jackson's role with the Colts is really, really nice. He played 68% of the snaps. He had 12 carries and 10 targets, which is awesome. He had 4 out of 11 red zone chances. If we get him without Taylor and Hines again for some reason, we should treat him as being like a Breece Hall type, I would say, where he's like going to get a good workload. So that's where I'd be at with him. The Commanders' backfield still one to avoid for me. Brian Robinson got the bulk of the work with 17 carries on Thursday, but he still played just 47% of the snaps in a neutral script, and they'll probably be more likely to be in negative scripts in general. I'm receptive to him if his role expands, but I need that to happen before I wind up buying in there. Let's go now to philosophical changes and talk about those Colts. It could have been with JT and Hines out, but the Colts are super pass heavy. They had 37 early down first half plays, which is a lot. But they had 30 passes on that. So very pass heavy. Matt Ryan played well. He had 0.40 passing net expected points per dropback for the game, resulted in 16 targets for Michael Pittman, 11 for Paris Campbell. As mentioned before, Deion Jackson had 10. Alec Pierce had 7. So they were very pass heavy. But Matt Ryan still had, on 57 attempts, 3 passes, 16 plus yards downfield, none of them to Michael Pittman. He still does not have a target more than 17 yards downfield. I hate this offense still, despite there being more pass heavy. What about you?
Yeah, and you would think that changes with the running backs being healthy. The low ADOT for those passes, just 6.0 yards downfield on average for Ryan this week. It's basically just rushes by another name. So the pass rate itself is a little bit misleading.
It's a more efficient version of the Steelers from last year. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
that matters. The efficiency matters, but
and like for as pass heavy as they were, I'm not saying like a pass rate over expectation of 9 percentage points is like nothing, but it wasn't like 20 or 18 or even 15. It was like they just kind of threw when they should have thrown, and a little bit more than that. They were like up tempo too, but I think it was just a matter of the whole entire game environment. So I'm not really going to chase this, and we're going to look back and say like, oh, Michael Pittman's coming off a 16 target game or whatever, but it's misleading.
Indeed, it is. Other one I had is that the Eagles passing game has been pretty horizontal recently, and I'm not really sure why. Because, okay, so here's the data here. Jalen Hurts is ADOT. The first 3 games is 8.7. Over the past 3 weeks is 4.7. Now, this is on my radar. We got an ETN before this week. And my explanation to myself was, okay, first game, week 4, rain game, and Jordan Mailata gets hurt midway through. Second game, week 5, Mailata didn't play. So I was like, okay, I can write this off. Mailata comes back last night. He plays. And even if you look before the Lane Johnson injury, it was a 4.0 yard ADOT, and it was 4.4 for the full game. So this is not explained by the Mailata injury or the Johnson injury. It's been low for a bit now. Hurts had just 1 targeted deep throw last night, and he's been under 240 passing yards in 3 straight games. So we love this offense. We love Jalen Hurts. We like these guys. We like that we know where the ball is going. But the yardage juice and the pass catchers might be a bit overstated right now. How does this impact your view of this offense and the pass catchers at the moment?
So they're on bye for next week, so maybe they have time to sort it out.
Yeah.
But one thing I will mention is that once I saw this note, I dug back in, and part of this is, I don't know if like tautological is the right word, but like it's almost like a circular reference in this sense. But the defenses he's faced so far this season in terms of ADOT allowed have been 21, 27, 32 to start. So all outside the top 20, that's when we saw the high ADOT. The past 3 games when his ADOT's been low, 11, 5th, and 9th. So like it could be just the defenses they faced. Again, having facing passes and allowing downfield targets is going to inflate your ADOT. But through 6 weeks for virtually every team, we're seeing that stabilize a bit. So could just be matchup related. Don't want to overreact too much to it, but I think it's important that we're monitoring it. And if that continues, because like we saw that with the Chiefs last year, we saw that with the Cardinals. Still, so like it does dampen impact because, as I talked about before, we talk about all the time, downfield targets matter, air yards matter. So it's a great call out by you.
Well, and also like the total passing yardage matters because like even if AJ Brown has a 30% target share, if he gets 36% of the receiving yards, if that's 155, who cares?
Yeah.
So that's the issue. It's not like a situation where I'm like, oh, I don't want to go with the Eagles anymore. It's like it just dampens my enthusiasm a bit with them. You had some notes on pass rate over expectation and other stuff and pace. What did you know when looking through that data?
Yeah, just a few things I saw. Panthers, again, super run heavy, pass rate over expectation of minus 15.8 points with PJ Walker, by far the lowest of the week. They were on average entering. So like I think we do have to adjust here. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's the only one that this impacts, but it sounds like it'd be great for an offense to be run heavy for a running back. But unless you're really efficient, you're having more rushes, which are generally less efficient than passes. So like that hurts the offense. So I think that that's a big part of why I'm lower on Christian McCaffrey. The Bengals were trailing, but they had the highest pass rate over expectation of the week, 19.7 points. I would love if they just started to air it out. Mm-hmm. But again, this doesn't account for game context, so that's why it's a good stat. But, give me some Joe Burrow, give me some Jamar Chase, and put them back on the menu. The 49ers, they're big three pass catchers. So Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk had good volume and good results, at least in terms of yardage. Ayuk had 2 touchdowns. That might not stick. They really were up in pace in a game where they were trailing. That led to higher play volume than normal. Again, we're going to look back and say, oh, these guys got targets, but that's not how they want to play unless this is indicative of a trend, but it probably wasn't. Not. So just be mindful of that. We're going to get George Kittle versus Travis Kelce next week, and there's one of those guys we should consider, and one of those guys we really probably shouldn't. And then the Rams they're usually like fast, but they were the slowest team in the league this week. They did win by 14, but they trailed by 3 entering the half, so it wasn't just a blowout from the start.
How did they trail by 3 in the first? What?
It was 10-7 at the half because they threw a pick 6 right before the half.
Shocker.
Sorry. They as in
retracted.
It was a team.
It slipped out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't mind me.
So it's something to watch for if they play differently. Like that's going to hurt Cooper Kupp eventually too if they're slowing things down.
Eventually might have already happened.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't had the same floor. Sorry for that word again, but like he hasn't had that same median expectation this year, I don't think, as he's had in years.
Well, past. I think we can say floor whenever it comes to actual production, just not like project, because you don't project Cooper Kupp he's going to get 10 points no matter what happens. Like that's, but like his statistical floor of like what he's actually put out there. Yeah. I mean, Okay, let's take a look forward to week number 7 with our salary score. We pull up the next week's main slate over on FanDuel.com and go position by position. Shout out guys who are noteworthy to us. Brandon at quarterback, you're rubbing your hands. Are you excited for something here or what? We get Dak at 75 against the Lions.
This could be a result of the Russell Wilson game last year, but I'm a little bit concerned about guys coming off a thumb injury in their first game.
Did you see the Twitter film though?
No.
He was like throwing darts at the camera and stuff.
Okay.
Get excited, Jim.
I heard about a firm handshake he gave someone last week. Does that count?
It counts.
He said, "How was that grip?" to the broad. What? Who had that game? I don't know. Someone's talking about Dak's hands a lot.
That doesn't really narrow it down.
Yeah. Because I could also see them being a bit conservative in his first game back.
I think they've been conservative by not playing him the past 2 weeks.
That's probably true. So maybe it's a situation where he didn't rush back like Russ did. There was a situation where they thought it was realistic he could play against the Rams 2 weeks ago, and he didn't play there, didn't play last night. He's been practicing. So maybe it's a better situation than what Russ had, and that's the result should be higher on him at 75. But like the range of outcomes really wide, and that's concerning to me.
It is. At the top though, like, so this is also why it jumped out, is because Prescott is visible at 75 when you first look at the player pool.
Correct.
At least like because we have Lamar Jackson at 88 and Patrick Mahomes at 85, then Joe Burrow at 83, coming off a huge game, but again, not a rushing quarterback. Justin Herbert against the Seahawks will be interesting depending on how things go. Eventually, Keenan Allen will return.
I think he'll be interesting no matter what. Like, I kind of hope they underwhelm tonight so we can get Herbert at reduced roster rates against a Seattle defense that prior to this week, prior to facing Cliff Kingsbury, was really bad.
So point being, like, we have Lamar, Mahomes, Herbert, and then probably Dak is going to be fourth given that salary. For me, you might be a little bit more hesitant, but Jared Goff at 73?
No, absolutely not against the Cowboys defense. How dare you?
I thought that's where you were going.
No, of course not. I think.
Oh, goodness.
What?
I don't know where you are, but I'm at 71 and 7,000.
Oh. Marcus Mariota having the same salary as Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And both being above Russell Wilson.
And above Russ.
I'm looking a little bit lower. Had a little revenge game there.
Oh,
Geno Smith is 68. I potentially foolishly talked myself into Geno at times this week. I did get to a fifth quarterback like a moron. 68 in a revenge game. He had 12.68 FanDuel points with no touchdowns of any kind this week. 6 rushes for 48 yards. Playing indoors.
And the Chargers will be on a short week.
Revenge game. Don't forget that. I know I said it 16 times. I think he's wearing a Chargers jersey in his headshot on FanDuel, actually.
I don't think there's any way to know.
I'm just saying.
I think it's interesting.
Just saying. Put it out there.
And, I mean, Mahomes against the 49ers.
It's a tough matchup, but they're banged up defensively, which helps.
Yeah.
I think Lamar is just he's the best play. And then probably looking at Herbert second for me right now. But I think the overall takeaway for me is I'm probably going to want to be up in the 8,000 range. Again, just as always at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go to running back,
okay,
I'm going to tell you that when I open the running back tab, I'm not going to scroll. I'm going to search for someone and find what their salary is.
You can just search without opening up the tab too.
That's true. I'll do that. That's smarter. Can you guess which running back I'm searching for?
Joe Mixon?
No.
DeAndre Swift?
No. Although that's probably a good one too, but no.
Who would you be searching for? Jonathan Taylor?
No.
Josh Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay.
Josh Jacobs. Oh my gosh, 86. Wow, it's way higher than I thought. That's appropriate.
Oh, wow.
I didn't expect it to be that high, but also I kind of don't hate it. Is that bad?
Against the Texans, they would be favored by what, 14?
What? Texans are winning that game. But
favored by 7. It was a joke,
but like with this new role that he's had, I think that 86 is appropriate. And like maybe people have the same shell shock that I had when they opened the tab and saw 86. Like, oh man, I can't do that. But I kind of think I want to.
I mean, I'm not gonna like write him off yet. He's
got
to be what then? He's between, at least for sure, between Fournette. I think he was 83 and McCaffrey 87.
I'd probably go Jacobs over both.
Like I'd go Jacobs there.
Dang. Okay.
Most likely. Yeah.
Let's start our salary scroll. Why is Eckler 95? I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a great matchup, but I'm sick of this.
I guess protecting, coming off 2 30-point games and protecting against like the huge eruption on an island game Monday night. So I hate
that his salary is so high because I like Austin Eckler and I don't want to like root against him scoring, but like they make me do it because I can't use him at his salary ever.
That's like how I feel about Nick Chubb. Like I understand Nick Chubb is the best rusher in football. Like It's not close based on expectation, based on just the eye test. Like he's awesome.
Yeah.
But he's 89 next week against the Ravens. Like I have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
And like
I probably won't use him because I don't need to, because like there are so many other guys.
Right. But like the past 3 weeks, 19 carries, 17, 12. 12 is obviously a decrease, but 118 yards and a touchdown, 134 and 2, 56 and none.
I don't think he's worth discussing because he's not in comparison to the other guys. Like the reason we talked about Chubb on the podcast is okay. Sorry, go ahead. My bad. I made you mad.
No, it's like his range of outcomes is still the same.
Yeah.
The matchup's not as good, but like I hate playing a guy because like I fear he might hit his high end of the outcomes.
Where are you at on Derrick Henry at 92? Because I think that's appropriate as well. Getting more involved in the passing game, 6'5" and 2 targets past couple of weeks. He's been effective in the passing game because they're using him in fun ways. I don't think 92 is outrageous either. So I think the upper range at running back is noteworthy, right?
Yeah, so he's averaging 106 scrimmage yards per game, 65% snap rate. Like he's one of the guys where, and it probably sounds like hypocritical. I kind of fear Henry more than I fear Chubb because Chubb has more competition.
Yeah.
I think 92 is interesting. Coming off of a bye, I would feel like guys coming off of a bye are not as heavily rostered as they should be.
Yeah.
It is kind of wild though that we have all these names here at the top And typically we'd be like, okay, how are we getting to these running backs? But I'm still like, okay, but let me see what's down lower in the salary range this week.
Damien Pierce is 77. I don't think that's a bad number because, again, I kind of think Houston can keep this game somewhat competitive because the Vegas defense is so bad. Vegas ranks 19th in adjusted early down EPA allowed per rush to opposing teams. So I thought they were a pretty good rush defense last year. They have not been quite as good this year. Pierce could be in play. Breece Hall, 76. Joe Mixon, 74. That's a good salary for him based on the role he's had recently.
Ooh,
Kenneth
Walker against
Ken Walker on his tractor, 73.
Don't even bother stopping the run. Chargers, 73.
I think he's the last guy before a fall off. Like, he is the lowest salaried guy in a tier of very good options, and typically that's a good spot to be in.
Yeah. It goes down to Zeke at 69 there. Aaron Jones, 68. Yeah, that's tough.
The fall off after Walker is big. Unless we get some sort of injury to shake things up. I can't see anybody below Walker I really want to use right now.
As of Monday morning, we're going to say absolutely not, but one name at least to kind of throw out as like a slight monitor, maybe like a 4 on the ETN scale is what we get with the Broncos running backs tonight. Because like Melvin Gordon isn't fully healthy, but if he has a really good workload, he's 63. They play the Jets. Like, we're not going to like that game, but
yeah, if he has a workload that's slightly better than what he had last week, 63 will be pretty good.
Because we're probably going to have some nice receivers too.
Yeah. So we'll have to keep a close eye on him. It's pretty grim below Walker, though, outside of Melvin.
Yeah.
Oh, so I pulled up receiver without telling you, by the way. Right. There are only 2 guys above 8,000. So that makes it easier to be gushing over the high salaried running backs. So that helps, I think.
And those guys are Devontae Adams, 86 against the Texans, and Jamar Chase, 85 against the Falcons.
I think the biggest thing this week related to the Jamar Chase thing is watching T. Higgins on the injury report, because he had 10 targets this past week, but wasn't healthy yet, I don't think. If we get him in a full practice by Friday, T. Higgins 71 could be a really, really fun mid-range wide receiver who I'd prefer by decades over Godwin at 7,000.
Yeah. In terms of that, yeah.
Okay, what else?
Lockett and Metcalf are down to 69 and 68, or 68, 69 respectively. So
okay, is it messed up that they burned me badly this past week, but I'm still very excited to use them at those respective salaries? Like, very excited?
No, because
I think I just trust
this might be a heat check classic week where we try to get in 2 running backs or maybe 3 at like 7,000 plus.
Yeah.
And just like, it's kind of shaping up that way.
Yeah.
You can't do that and be rostering guys in the 7,000 range at receiver, like numerous per. You can maybe get to 1, but that 6,000 range is going to be key.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I've built a lot of lineups with a stud quarterback and three stud running backs, and I know what it leaves me with the receiver. And the 6,000 range is going to be very, very important.
Sorry, I'm just building one really quick here. I have to pick a defense to you. Let's go Bengals again because I'm used to in that.
Oh my gosh,
I know. Well, no, let's go Chiefs because
you can't generate any sacks if the other team doesn't throw the ball. Running that like Georgia Tech offense.
I'll go with the Chiefs. Same issue, but Jimmy Garoppolo will find a way to get me there. Okay, if I go Gino, sorry, choked.
Sure.
Gino. Plus Ken Walker, Breece Hall, Joe Mixon, and the Chiefs defense at 68. I'm going to be in this the 6,000 receiver a lot.
That's like
Gino.
That's like the bare minimum. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's ignoring all the 8,000 and 9,000 running backs. So I need to be in this 6,000 range at a receiver a lot. So Teagan 71, he's like a borderline. He is 9 out of 10 ETNs for on my radar for the practice injury report this week.
Yeah. He would be, he's going to be a write down.
Yep.
Again,
what else do you see at receiver? I think if we're looking at the Dak situation, looking at a way to take advantage, Michael Gallup at 61.
Yeah.
7 targets this past week. He will not get a CUDA because I'd assume that he'll be on CD Lamb this week, assuming that Detroit still plays their same style of defense. Gallup 61, intriguing is what I would say.
I could almost guarantee you that Michael Gallup will be in my receiver loves this week. And it will be like a Higgins / Metcalf / Lockett for number 1, possibly Gallup number 2, and then someone in the 5,000 range because I can't build around the running backs and not love those receivers. Although I guessed wrong at receiver this week. That was the big issue.
Yeah, I've done that every week of my life, so I've been there. Romeo Doubs is, I think, more in play now knowing the composition of running back. $5,800 facing off against Washington. 9 targets this past week. He now has 8 or more in 3 of his past 4 games. Hasn't shown a lot of yardage upside, which is concerning. But I think that like it's within his range of outcomes to have a good yardage game. So I would note him personally.
Yeah. Maybe we get news that like Wandell Robinson will have an extended role. He's 55. Really bailed me out with a touchdown.
Did you look above him?
MVS?
Yeah. He's still sitting there at 56. Actually, let me check. I meant to check their routes yesterday, and I didn't get around to it because I was going to look at because it seemed like Sky Moore played more.
The Chiefs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. MVS was out there. 82% route rate.
That's a little bit lower than what he has been, though, isn't it? Or am I wrong?
So the Chiefs receivers, 81% this week, 87, 75, 86, 86, 70.
Yeah, Sky Moore only ran 12 routes, so he's still not. It really is just Juju.
And that final pick went his way, so I hope they don't hold it against them.
For Sky Moore?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was his fault. I think it was good defense.
I don't think it was either, but
yeah, I get what
never know.
So MVS 56, no, whatever.
My gosh, DJ Moore 55.
Not interested.
No, but like
that's where we're at right now. Yeah, I think it'll probably go ahead.
We're really gonna have to dig down here, though. I think
could get an Elijah Moore squeaky wheel narrative at 51. He was tweeting about his lack of targets on Sunday, but he has not had more than 53 yards yet this year, and they're a good enough team where they don't really have to throw as much as they did.
One thing we did not mention was that Robbie Anderson got himself ejected from his own sideline this week for the Panthers. So
he wasn't actually ejected, right?
No,
the definition of the term, he just got
the sideline was just go to the locker room. Out. So I'm not saying that I'd play DJ, but if he's not playing,
I don't care, honestly. If it's not, unless it's Baker, I know that Baker has his own issues, but if it's PJ Walker, they're not going to throw, so who cares? Or Jacob Eason, they're not going to throw, so who cares? He could have a 30% target share and get you 3 targets. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So no.
I'm just scrounging through here, see if anything pops out, but I don't think
Braxton Berrios with his 16 rushing touchdowns this year. Yeah, I think really it's so you mentioned Wandale. I think that's a good call out as being someone who could potentially be in play at Jacksonville. Kind of a weirdly fun game. Marquez Valdez-Scantling again, if we have to.
This honestly though is
I think Dobbs at 58 does wind up being almost a borderline write down, and Gallup at 61.
This is shaping up a lot like last week, only the running backs we want to play are high salaried and the receivers are all still bad, in the value range.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Which is scary.
I think that makes the urgency to get to Lockett and Metcalf higher because we know they have really good ceilings, and we don't know that for most of the lower salaried receivers.
Yeah, we need to get back up somehow. Mm-hmm. So maybe a little bit more of a modified build, and that means we can love Derrick Henry.
It means we're going to have a lot of Kenneth Walker, a lot of Breece Hall again.
It's going to be in that 7,000 range at running back, 6,000 range at receiver.
We'll look into Mixon to see what the efficiencies look like the past couple of weeks. I think there were some encouraging signs overall.
He had an interesting end zone target. It was a wheel. It wasn't a wheel route. It was a wheel fade thing. I'm not a film guy, but it was interesting.
Their early down rushing efficiency after including last week, adjusted for opponent, is now 30th. So it's getting better. It's trending up. So I think Mixon will be a guy we'll probably talk about Thursday, if I had to guess.
Yeah. I would think so.
Tight end. We have Mark Andrews, 85, Travis Kelce, 83.
Play him if you can, but I don't know if I can realistically get there.
The if you can caveat is unfortunately prominent there. David Njoku is 57 again. He keeps getting receiving yardage, and that's not a bad game. I think that using Njoku as like a bring back in Lamar stacks, probably something I'll be doing quite a bit this week.
What's Amari's salary?
I don't
72.
I can use a tight end tied to percent. I can't use valuable real estate.
It was like did I overlook Amari at like 67 kind of a thing?
Oh yeah. If you were 57, sure. Just kidding. Big shot Bob Tunyon is 55, as I mentioned before. Viable but not desirable, I think is how I'd phrase that. Maybe this is a Kate Otten week because we want to get to the high salaried running backs. Maybe we use him as the route to getting there.
It might be, and it's not that. Usually we frame it as like you're betting against Andrews and Kelce. At a certain point, they can burn you at 85 and 83, but like
they need 30.
Again, like per dollar,
yeah.
Like if they gave you 17, that's pretty restrictive. Yeah. So like at a certain point, they're almost salaried out of like FOMO territory.
Yeah. One guy who gets like 2.5 ETNs out of 10 is Jelani Woods. But I will monitor him so you don't have to, because he ran still just 21 routes this week. So don't bother yet, but I'll keep an eye on him so you don't have to. So don't go there yet. I think it is Kate Otten at 49, who is kind of the one guy we'll probably need in order to jam in what we want for this week. And I'm actually okay with doing so personally, I think.
I would rather go that route at tight end than receiver.
Yes.
I haven't really felt like I could do that very often at tight end because there hasn't been anyone down there who had a realistic path to a bankable role.
Yeah.
We've seen it from Otten. So
Peyton Hendershot ran 23 routes on 37-ish dropbacks for the Cowboys at 38. So if Dalton Schultz were to sit again at 44, maybe you go that way. But I don't think Schultz will sit again. I think he'll play.
See, that was a 61% route rate.
Yeah. Does Noah Gray look like Nick Kroll does he look like Nick Kroll to you? Like kind of the eyes, Nick Krollish eyes. Or am I making that up?
I mean, a little bit.
Okay. Well, he's not there yet. I'm also on it. He's 3.5 ETNs, mostly because I have dynasty exposure in formats.
Okay, Jim.
You have a problem, Jim. I know.
Jim. You cannot recommend.
I'm not recommending. I'm saying I'm monitoring, so you don't have to. That's what I'm saying.
I'm monitoring Chris Conley, see if he gets back on the field for the Chiefs too.
He's negative 0.3 ETNs out of 10.
How dare you?
Is he on the practice squad or the active roster?
I think he's on practice squad.
Yeah. Well,
he's probably like a locker room guy, though.
Noah Gray's on the active roster.
I mean, who would know it by his yardage?
43% snap rate. Where Chris Conley snaps. Boom. Notes to future me for week number 7. I think that my takeaway is I'm going to have to dig a lot into those 7,000 range running backs to decide how I rank them. And can I fade the high 8,000 and 9,000 guys to get there and dig into $5,600 or $5,700 in lower tight ends to see if I can go that route in order to keep myself out of the dungeon at receiver. What are you looking into throughout this week?
So you kind of mentioned running back and tight end. I think what actually jumped out to me most was, can I avoid, like, how much can I get? How many quarterbacks can I play? Like, am I doing myself a disservice by not rostering like 80% Lamar? And then at receiver, just seeing who I can trust, like really digging in, because that's where I missed hard this week. Not that a lot of receivers predictably put up big games anyway, but maybe I got to look a little bit deeper at things there.
Yeah, I'm going to look into Geno as well to see if I can justify going down there, because we haven't had a 6,000 range quarterback who's legitimately in play. It's possible Geno's not.
You had Teddy, but then he got hurt.
Oh, yeah. Please don't remind me about that.
Too late.
Very rude.
You just lost the game.
What?
So you just lost the game.
Yeah. Oh, well. We had a good run. Okay, that is all that we have here for this week on our Week 6 recap podcast, Week 7 preview podcast. Hopefully talking about Geno. Hopefully I can talk myself into him. Coming up on Thursday, that'll be live on the FanDuel YouTube page at 10 a.m. We'll be up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed after that as well. Again, Tom Vecchio is back with the Daily ISO tomorrow for the opening night of NBA. So get that by subscribing to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
Matt Godola13, GDULA13.
And I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Hopefully week number 6 went well for you. Good luck to you with your Monday night slates. We'll talk to you once again Thursday to get set for week number 7. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.